I wrote a little song to remind you, Choice Hotels get you more of the experiences you value. The Cambria Hotel's got it all. A rooftop bar, have a ball. Cocktails up here feel just right. Is Cambria amazing? All right. Bring a date, your team, or even your mom. Book direct at choicehotels.com. See you on the roof.
Adobe Firefly is the all-in-one creative studio with AI-powered image and video editing for today's creative process. Built for creators of every kind, Firefly helps you generate, edit, and experiment fast. Because the asks aren't getting smaller, the budgets aren't getting bigger, and the timelines, oh yeah, still tight. With all the best creative AI models in one place, Firefly brings your ideas to life. Unlock a better way to make with Adobe Firefly.
This is an episode from the archives. I wanted to re-air it for those who are new subscribers to That's Total Mom Sense. And for those of you who have heard it before, I'm sure you'll glean new insights from our conversation. Listen in. There is no hood like parenthood. Hi, I'm Kanika Chadda Gupta. I'm a former CNN journalist, mom of 3, including twins, and host of That's Total Mom Sense, the podcast. Now, if I had $1 every time I heard, gee, you have your hands full. On my show, I interview change makers on their life lessons, legacy, and superpower of intuition, which I call our Mom Sense and Dad Sense. I've had the privilege of working with Mom 2.0, March of Dimes, and the White House, and have had some pretty amazing parents on my show.
Hey, what's up? I'm Kelly Rowland.
Hi, this is Chelsea Clinton.
It's me, Bobby Brown. Can't wait to share my story.
That's Total Mom Sense is a production of the Evergreen Podcast Network. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube so you never miss an episode. To join my tribe, visit that'stotalmomsense.com and follow me on Instagram at Kanika Chadda Gupta. Now let's dive into today's episode. Video games have been fixtures in everyone's childhood, and the gaming industry has changed significantly. It's a whole new world for kids and parents alike. 190.6 million Americans ages 5 to 90 play video games, and 61% report playing a video game at least 1 hour per week. 90% of children play video games and are introduced to edutainment between the ages of 2 to 18. Today, we're speaking with a pioneer in the video gaming industry who's leading with intention to create protocols and set boundaries where they're necessary. Patricia E. Vance is the president of the Entertainment Software Rating Board, ESRB, and has been with the company for over 20 years. She oversees the teams who assign age and content ratings to video games and apps. She also serves as founding chairperson of the International Age Rating Coalition, a nonprofit that operates a groundbreaking global rating and age classification system for all things digital, games, and apps. Pat is a member of the board of directors for the Family Online Safety Institute and the Academy of Interactive Arts and Sciences. Pat spent 18 years at Disney and ABC and served as senior VP and GM of the ABC Internet Group, where she led 2 video game joint ventures and the management oversight of ABC.com, ABCnews.com, Oscar.com, and Oprah.com. She holds a BA in International Relations and Russian from Washington University and is the mother of 2 daughters. Pat, welcome to That's Total Mom Sense. It's an honor to have you on the show.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. I am just floored by the fact that you have been with the ESRB for 20 years and have been an insider in the industry, paving the way for us. So let's start from the beginning. How did you get this opportunity to work with the ESRB?
Well, as you outlined in the introduction, I've spent a long time in media, particularly interactive media. I had been in the video game business, having launched 2 joint ventures when I was at ABC. Loved the business. Just think it's one of the most compelling forms of entertainment. Have huge respect for the talent in the industry, the best programmers, the best interactive designers, the best graphic artists, the best storytellers. I mean, I couldn't be more enamored with the industry itself. So, I was invited to take on this position. It was very compelling for me to be in the middle of the industry, but also be providing real public service and helping parents and families determine what's most appropriate for their families. And I think we serve a very important function in the public sphere. It's been a really, really fun ride. Always new challenges. I mean, I love the challenge of keeping up with the industry because it's a very dynamic industry. The fact that it's challenging work, and I've got such great people that I'm working with. It's a happy place.
And looking back, what would you say, are some of the biggest wins that you've had in your career?
When I first joined the organization, one of the industry's challenges was the lack of enforcement at retail, where a minor under the age of 17, could pretty easily walk up to a counter and purchase a mature-rated video game without a parent's permission or presence. That was really an Achilles heel for us. It's one thing as an industry to provide this rating information, which is great, but if we're letting kids purchase games that are inappropriate without a parent's involvement, I think that was a big gap for us. So one of my first challenges here was to create something we called the ESRB Retail Council, which got commitments from stores to really engage in ongoing audits, mystery shop audits, whereby, we would send kids in with an adult in the back and see if they could purchase an M game. Every retailer has these prompts that come up. If you're a store associate, you see a game is scanned, particularly a mature-rated video game is scanned for purchase, a prompt comes up requesting ID. It serves no purpose if a store associate is overriding that prompt. Once we started these mystery shop audits with the retailer's commitment and support, we started to provide information back to the retailer about where we were finding a lack of enforcement. And so fairly quickly, like within 3 years, we went from 15% of the time store policies were being enforced to, 85% of the time. It was a huge improvement. I'm very, very proud of that work. And that work continues today, even though retail has changed a lot over the past 20 years. It's still an important program. Retailers still support it. So that's a program that I'm very, very proud of. I think we were involved in a Supreme Court case that was decided in 2011 that tried to restrict the sale of violent video games. It was found unconstitutional. And we were part of that case in that the court found that, video games not only are speech, but that the industry is doing a good job providing information to parents, stopping kids from trying to purchase games at retail, and also making sure that companies are responsibly marketing their product. So there were a number of components of what we were doing that were recognized in that decision. So that's also another proud moment. And then I guess the last was what you mentioned in the introduction, which is we launched the International Age Rating Coalition, which is a coalition of rating authorities from around the world who now participate in a different way, a different process to rate digital games and mobile apps. And we developed that process here at the ESRB and then gave it to this new organization that we created called the International Age Rating Coalition to administer. Those are some of the highlights, I think, for me.
Well, we want to really break down what the ESRB does for our audience. Can you help explain the moving parts?
The ratings that we provide are now 3 parts. When I joined the organization, it was only 2. Age rating categories are E for everyone 10 plus, T for teen, M for mature are the main categories that you would see on physical boxes and also on digital games and mobile apps in certain stores. You will find not only the age rating category displayed, but you'll also see content descriptors next to that age rating category. And the content descriptors are equally important to the rating category for parents. They tell you what is in the game and why we assigned the rating that we did, because parents feel differently about different types of content. Some parents are more sensitive to having their kids exposed to violence or language or suggestive themes or other types of content. So we want to make sure that parents have that information right up front, so that they can make a decision about the relative appropriateness of a particular game for a child. The third part of the system is the newer part, which is what we call interactive elements. And the interactive elements are really more about a feature in a game, not content specifically. So for an example, if a game enables online interactions among players, multiplayer games do that. Not all games are multiplayer, but those that are will have a users interact notice, which will give a heads up to a parent that that game can be played with other users and to take appropriate precautions. And then also if there are in-game purchases, in other words, if there are opportunities to spend money in the game, it's important for parents to know that, give them a heads up and take appropriate measures. There is a certain type of in-game purchase that can be randomized. We call them loot boxes, and there's a specific notice about that as well. So if parents want to know upfront about, whether or not this particular game has loot boxes in it, that notice will provide them with that information. So if parents also want to go to our website, esrb.org, or our mobile app, they can also find rating summaries, which are a paragraph or two about providing actually much greater detail about the content that we saw in the game. So that's also available to parents. Those are only available for physical games, not your typical mobile app, but they're really wonderful in terms of giving you even a greater and deeper understanding of what's in the game. A very important part of our mission is to ensure that companies are marketing products responsibly. Now, how do we do that? Enforcing a set of guidelines that require companies to display rating information wherever the product is marketed or sold. So that means on the box, on their websites, on, a variety of different ads, and rating needs to be prominently and legibly displayed. If it's a mature rated video game, then it cannot be targeted to kids under 17. And we review marketing plans and media plans. We monitor media. We want to make sure that companies are not inappropriately marketing mature-rated video games to under 17-year-olds. And we do that a whole host of different ways. And then thirdly, we want to make sure, particularly for ads that are exposed to the general public, that the ad is responsible. In other words, not everybody who's going to see that ad is going to buy the game. Maybe not every person who sees that ad is going to appreciate certain types of content in an ad. And so particularly for mature rated video games, it may have more violent content or language or whatever. That content cannot be in an ad when it's exposed to the general public. So we want to make sure that companies are acting responsibly in a variety of different ways. And if they don't, we have an enforcement system whereby we have sanctions, we have corrective actions that we require companies to enact. So that's the second part. The third part is our privacy certified program, which started up about 20 years ago when the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act went into effect, which is something that parents should be aware of. That act provided a safe harbor for companies that help certify and help guide companies with online products and services to ensure that they're compliant with the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act. That makes sure that kids' personal data is not collected without a verifiable parental consent. It's really important for kids not to lie about their age, for parents not to fudge the birth date so that a child can get access to a particular app or game, because once the child puts in their correct age, that company or that product or service cannot collect any personal data from that child without a parent's consent. So that's a really important program for us. We help companies comply with not just COPPA and other privacy laws, but that's a really, sort of critical part of how we, as call it a self-regulatory body, really help the industry deploy and enforce really responsible practices across a whole host of various different areas. Yeah.
I know, in my circle of friends and parents that I've heard from, we wonder why the ratings are set to what they are. The Motion Picture Association, MPAA, came up with their rating system. This was in 1966 for G, PG, PG-13, and R. Is there a reason why this is different? I'm just curious.
Their system was obviously established well before ours. Films are different than video games. They're not interactive. When we set out, and I wasn't here at the beginning of the ESRB, but from what I understand, there was a lot of research that was done. We brought in a lot of various different stakeholders to develop this system. And we determined from the get-go that we needed a two-part system. We needed age ratings and content descriptors because we felt that was really what parents wanted to know. If you're assigning a rating, why are you assigning a rating? It wasn't just enough to assign a rating. Of course, there's the film industry, we're the video game industry. We're not the same company. So we just decided to do something different.
So, technology, as we know, has pros and cons. And, I feel as parents, we have found that moderation is really the name of the game. I want to speak about balancing screen time. So the ESRB conducts annual research, and parents, and I see this being one of the biggest challenges, is managing their screen time. And there's no denying the negative effects. And I want to list them here. Sleep disruption from the blue light affects the melatonin hormone that regulates sleep, reduced physical activity, which can contribute to obesity, limited face-to-face interactions, which can impede on social skills, and it affects your attention span and concentration. So we know that these are all the negative effects, but when you have boundaries in place, it actually will work in your favor. So can you tell us how the SRB helps parents manage all this screen time?
Yeah, well, we agree that one of the biggest challenges that parents have, particularly when it comes to video games, is screen time, but that applies sort of across the board. Our kids are modeling our own behavior in some cases, so we need to be really cautious about that. We are a huge proponent of parents having household rules. Most parents do. And having household rules about, when is it appropriate to be playing games? There also needs to be some flexibility because games, unlike a movie where you can just, pause in the middle of it, games, if it's a multiplayer game, you're often in the middle of a match or a competition, and you've got your teammates that you don't want to let down. And it's important for parents to recognize that, if you're calling your kid down for dinner, it's important to recognize that they may be in the middle of a critical moment in a match and to just let them finish the match and come down to dinner. That lessens a lot of the tension that may result. I also think it's super important for parents to keep the conversation about games in the home positive and ongoing. You don't want games to become just the subject of negativity. You're playing games too much, or I don't know who you're playing with, so I'm going to just take the thing away from you. Really important for parents to understand the fun that kids get from playing these games, the benefits that they get from playing these games. They're very social, problem solving, strategic thinking, team building, leadership. there's all sorts of aspects of playing games that are very positive. And I think it's important for parents to understand what their child is playing, why is it so much fun? What are they getting out of it? Who they're playing with? Try to really make sure they engage in real conversations with their kids about what it is that they're doing. And then, of course, playing with their child is critical. Parents need to just get in there and play. And we're finding in our research that more and more parents are doing just that. I think there are a lot of things parents can do to manage screen time. And then, of course, last but definitely not least, there are parental controls. Virtually every game device has parental controls that you can set time limits on. Some allow you to set it by day of the week or particular daytime. And, that's a really important tool for parents to know that they're there. It's not just a matter of setting a household rule, but it's also you have a backup plan, which are the parental controls.
Yes. Yeah. And I love how you said that we have to model that. And that's something that, my husband and I are very conscious of. It's called phubbing, when you snub someone or snub your child when you're on your phone. And, that does lead to rates of low self-esteem and they just feel neglected, when you do that. And so one thing that we do is we don't have phones at meal times. And even when we have friends over, we have a phone drawer. everyone pop your phone in the drawer. That way we can all talk face to face and enjoy being in the moment.
We all need to get our heads out of our phones.
Yes, 100%. And now I want to go deep dive into more of the positive effects of video games. The industry contributes to 57 billion in the US economy and consumer spending in 2023, and it supported over 429,000 jobs. So, these are really staggering numbers. The average age for gaming is 36, and adults 18 plus were polled, and 79% said playing brings them joy. 92% of boomers and the silent generation say that it provides mental stimulation, and 85% of Gen Zers say it gives them stress relief. So this is really incredible to see that, it's actually something to look forward to and enjoy.
Yeah, they should not be feared. I think they do provide a lot of joy and a lot of benefits across the board for all ages.
Is there a time that you can introduce games? Because, that the jury's out on that. Like, is there an age that you're like, this is a sweet spot?
Yeah, I think, look, parents know their child better than anybody else, and every child is different. So, I think parents really need to gauge for themselves what's appropriate. I mean, I see lots of very young kids playing with their parents' iPad or phone, playing games from a very, very young age. I just think the most important thing is for parents to know what their kids are playing, what they're downloading, what they're seeing, who they're playing with is critical. You should be restrictive about who they can play with, whether it's their cousins or their brothers and sisters or their friends at school. But there are tools available. The device level tools are really, really important for parents to familiarize themselves with because they give them a lot of control. The younger kids, you may want to be more restrictive, but as kids get older, as they get into their teen years, they're going to want to play with anybody they want to play with. Teaching children about what you would teach someone if they're going to go to the movies by themselves. All of these digital literacy skills need to be taught, not just for games, but for everything that our children are doing online. Sometimes kids are going off platform or out of the game to communicate while they're playing. That's super dangerous because then you're no longer under the control of the game publisher or the device. Your parental controls are no longer working. So if your kids are playing on adjacent platforms or communicating with their friends on adjacent platforms while they're playing games together, it's important for parents to know that and to take reasonable precautions. Well, who are you playing? Who are you talking to?
You can make this a family game night and, get in on the fun. How do you encourage we do that? Like where, everyone's involved and cheering each other on?
Yeah, it's so much fun. Again, games are entertainment. Games are meant to be fun and they can be a family activity. Pick a game, watch your kid play it, go online. There are lots of streams now of people playing certain games. Understand, what makes the game so much fun and just start to play. And, if your kid beats you, great. You don't have to be an expert. You don't have to be a champion. You just play. I mean, I think it's really fun. And there are some games that are just super intuitive. Just jump in. You don't have to have a lot of experience playing them. They're pretty much available to anybody.
Yeah, no, studies show that adults need more play. That's like what sparks, your creativity and imagination. So we need to take a cue from our kids when it comes to that. You said not to use games as a reward or a punishment.
Yeah, I think that's super, super important. Keep it positive because the more negative you make it, or use it as a punishment or a reward or whatever, then if there's ever an issue with your child playing a game, they're not going to want to come to you to talk about it because they're going to be afraid that you're going to take that thing away from them. I think it's really important that it stays positive, that you stay open about, making sure that the games are part of the family experience and the entertainment decisions and choices that you have in the home. If there are ever any issues, it's the fact that somebody may be acting inappropriately online is not the child's fault. And so the child needs to be comfortable coming to you.
What is the video game industry doing to continue to improve trust and safety for younger players? And essentially, what are the initiatives the ESRB are doing to support this?
Yeah. Well, companies are doing a lot. They have community guidelines in place. They're enforcing those community guidelines. They're moderating their communities. Again, that gets back to making sure that kids aren't going off platform or off, out of the game. Game publishers are doing a lot. They're also starting to use AI to help them moderate online communications, to make sure that they are aware, particularly when it comes to voice chat, which is super difficult to moderate. We're starting to use AI to help them identify disruptive players. As I said earlier, those parental controls can do everything from, managing time spent, managing money. If you don't want your child spending any money, those parental controls will stop it altogether. Or if you want to allow them to spend $3 a month or something, you can set those sorts of limits. You can block by age rating, by ESRB rating. So if you don't want them to be able to access any games that are rated above a E10 plus or a teen, you can do that using these parental controls. And then lastly, those controls allow you to manage online communication. So some of those parental controls also come in the form of a mobile app. So you can actually manage your child's gameplay remotely. So say, for an example, your child gets to a certain level in a game and wants to make a 50-cent purchase or something. They can notify you wherever you are to say, hey, can I purchase, can I spend this money? And you can approve it or deny it, or can I play with Johnny? He's not in my friends list, and you can allow it or not. So those mobile apps are available now for all the consoles, game consoles. Those are really, really important. The ESRB has put out a lot of resources, and they're all for parents. So ESRB.org has something we call Family Gaming Guide, which pulls a lot of advice together. So you go to parentaltools.org, you get access to the Family Gaming Guide. You get access to very easy to understand instructions on how to set up those parental controls. So step-by-step guides, depending on the device that you have. In some cases, there are games like Fortnite or Roblox that have in-game parental controls, and we explain what those are and how to set those up. I think it's super important for parents to have access to all of this information. We have blogs. You can subscribe to our newsletter. We have blogs about games that are coming out that are going to be really popular, particularly with kids, what you need to know about them. We have all sorts of advice about online gameplay or, different aspects, VR or all sorts of different great information for parents to digest that we're very happy with. So ESRB.org, our mobile app, you can search for rating information as well as access a lot of these resources. You also, have parentaltools.org, which is, as I said, an easy to remember URL. And lastly, I would just say we have a Spanish website too. It's called Vamos a Jugar. That's a place that Spanish-speaking households can go to access some of this information as well.
So a question about parental controls. Is it done within the gaming console? And you have the guidelines and the step-by-steps on how to set it up?
Yes. So all your game consoles have parental controls. Your mobile devices have parental controls. Some of the games, as I said, have parental controls specifically to those games. The other thing that I didn't mention earlier, which is important for parents to know, particularly if their children are playing online with others, virtually all games have the ability to block, mute, or report other players. Kids should not be afraid to use them. If there's somebody they're playing with online who's making them upset or, acting out or saying things they don't like, block them. There are no consequences to the player who's doing the reporting. So I think it's important for parents to understand that there are not just these parental controls, but then there are this ability to block, mute, report other players inside a game to really, keep the experience they're having positive.
20 to 40% of young gamers have reported being bullied while playing a game. If you're an involved parent and you see how they're playing and encourage them to be able to like use their agency to block, mute, then they're not going to be as affected and impacted by that. You know, a parent can say, you can just make them go away, you know?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's really great. I partnered with a cybersecurity company called Aura, and they have their own set of parental controls. And I love how this is becoming, you know, something that's so readily available in the industry. And that's something that you can manage through your profile, but you can sync up each game and, you know, have the controls be consistent across the board, whether it's timing, the days of the week, as you mentioned, limiting the access to the games that are not age appropriate. There's just a plethora of resources out there. And again, it's up to us to put in that time, do our research, and set it all up.
Yeah, absolutely.
And tell us about just in-game purchases too. What are some things that we should know when it comes to that? You sync your credit card, and of course you can, you know, limit your child from making these in-app purchases.
Yeah,
But
I mean, a lot of parents just don't put a credit card in the child's account. We don't find that that's a particular challenge for parents. The challenge is, you know, time and really knowing who they're playing, particularly as they get older, who they're playing with online. Parental controls can really help with that.
yes. And do you have any conversation starters around that? So, you know, when you have a younger child, a tween or a teen, how do you, you know, illuminate this wild, wild west that exists and help them understand, like, this is why we have these controls in place. We don't want strangers interacting with you on here.
Yeah, I think you need to set up this conversation as, you know, we want to make sure that your experiences remain positive. You know, again, it goes back to what I keep saying, which is make sure that the conversations are positive. You know, we want to make sure that you continue to enjoy games and that, you know, they're the most positive they can possibly be. And part of that is want to make sure you're playing appropriate games, want to make sure you're playing with with people that you know or I know, make sure that you're protecting yourself in the event that somebody is harassing you. You're using those in-game controls to mute or block. We don't have a problem with you playing games. We love games. Games are fun, but let's make sure that they continue to be positive.
Now let's get into future trends, because, you know, we're really in this incredible era and revolution when it comes to technology, AI, VR. So tell us, you know, what's on the horizon in this industry?
Well, what you're seeing a lot now are the availability of very robust tools for players to use to develop their own experiences within a game. Fortnite is a great example of that. And Roblox, Minecraft. They're all games, or we actually call them they're more like platforms now, where there are a variety of different experiences inside the game, to a lesser extent with Minecraft, but you know, both Roblox and Fortnite really do provide these very large platforms for players to engage, not just in playing games, but also creating them. So I think that's a big trend. You know, the use of AI, as I said, I think will be very helpful in the long term, really in helping companies moderate these communities that are so large and at such scale that I'm very optimistic about the use of AI to do that. You know, that will help enormously. Obviously, the market has exploded thanks to mobile, such a larger market than it ever was. By the way, our E for Everyone category has always been our largest category. So parents need to understand that there's a ton of games out there that are appropriate for all ages. They don't need to scale up if they don't want to. It's exciting because there's always change, always new and different types of product coming out. So it's really fun. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's been an evolution, and, you know, you've witnessed a lot of this firsthand. I'm like thinking back to, you know, Atari days,
Yeah.
just how far we've come, you know.
It's evolved a lot. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
my first game was Pong.
Yeah. I love Miss Pac-Man.
Yeah,
That
Pac-Man's
was the
great.
fun
Always
one.
great. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. They're relics of the past. But yeah, just to see how far we've come is really, really amazing. Do you have any parting advice for parents who are tuning in today?
Get in there, play. That's my advice. Get in there, play, learn, talk to your kids, enjoy it. Just even if it's just sitting and watching your child play. Your kids are playing because they love it. And so you need to understand why and sort of maybe share in that love. But also take advantage of all the great tools that are out there. Parentaltools.org is a great place to start.
That's excellent. Thank you so much for joining us and for your invaluable insights. And I think so many families who are listening today are going to use this as an opportunity to bond with their kids. And that's really special.
Really appreciate you having me on today. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of That's Total Mom Sense. You can listen to the audio version wherever you get your podcasts. Just search for That's Total Mom Sense. You can learn more about my guests by logging on to www.thatstotalmomsense.com. Be sure to follow me on Instagram, where I'm most active on social media. My handle is @KanikaChaddaGupta. And if you have ideas for show topics or guests you can't wait to have on the show, write to me at thatstotalmomsense@gmail.com. And lastly, please rate, review, and subscribe to That's Total Mom Sense if you haven't already. Thanks for being in my tribe.
Hello, and welcome to Newbies, the podcast created for new moms navigating the first year of motherhood. Each episode is a safe and supportive space where we talk honestly about postpartum recovery, newborn care, breastfeeding, sleepless nights, mental health, identity shifts, and all the moments nobody fully prepares you for. I'm your host, Kaylee Garcia, and as a new mom myself, I know firsthand how emotional and life-changing the season can be. That's why Newbies is your go-to podcast. It's to bring moms together through real conversations, shared experiences, practical advice, and reassurance that you're not the only one feeling this way. On the show, you'll hear candid stories from fellow moms, expert insights, tips for navigating postpartum life, and conversations about everything. Subscribe to Newbies for new episodes every Thursday. And if you want even more support, join our Patreon, where you can listen to episodes early and ad-free and be a part of our growing community of moms.